We are just under 3 days away from the start of the AFL season, so why not just do a general chat video? I think today we'll discuss Cincotta and Cowan and Ollie Hollands, plus the news of a bit of PR about the bloody Giants. They just cause us havoc every year. Want to put attention into Laird and Dawson, so we'll speak about my read on that and whatnot. But also I'll show you how my team is set up. No Josh Kelly, we'll get to that in a second. I think it's more structural purposes. But nonetheless, yeah, we'll go over a few things today. So it is pretty freaky that we're under 3 days away. I just remember looking at the timer, it would have been maybe before Supercoach opened, but 100. I just remembered it was like 100 days away, 50 days away, and then damn, it's very close now. So a bit surreal, I guess, because you put so much time and effort into it. You count down for so long, and here we are. But we need to make sure we get it right and not throw out all the research that we've done over the preseason. So I think we'll firstly touch on, before I actually get into my team, we'll touch on Cowan, Cincotta, and Ollie Hollands. So if you're banking on Cincotta playing, the 26-year-old, I believe, halfback from Carlton's VFL squad, doesn't seem like he will debut. Carlton announced that Hollands and Cowan will play round one. So do we pick Ollie Hollands? Well, obviously you take Cincotta out, but do we pick Ollie Hollands? Sounds like he's a wing. He'll be a wing opposite to Akers maybe, and then the other wingman, maybe Chera, maybe Walsh when he comes back in. Does Hollands hold his spot when Walsh comes back in? I honestly don't know. It might be performance dependent. But all I really know about Hollands is he could rack it up a bit in the is it NAB League, and yeah, played mostly wing, more of an outside player. But 160k, I don't think you can field him. Might be good for like a 55 average or something like that. So I wouldn't be fielding him, and I don't think he's the best bench option out there. So for me, he's one I'd probably avoid. Just pretty hard to fit someone like that in. Not sure it's worth a bench spot, because I think there's other good rookies to pay up for. And the next one is Cowan. So Cowan's an interesting one. So we saw he's basically playing because Zach Williams is injured, which is why they put Cincotta on the list. He is, I believe, a very high disposal, good ball winner at NAB League or whatever it is in Tassie, the Tassie League. And to my knowledge, yeah, 26 disposals a game, which sounds like a lot, but I don't think he had many touches in the practice game. It might have been like 10 or 12 or something like that. Scored a pretty low, I think it was in the 40s somewhere, but if they still have Doherty as the main man back there with Sard, maybe Newman plays as well. So Cowan, they might give him more defensive jobs. I'm not exactly too sure. He definitely would have it in him to win a fair bit of the ball and have like a spike game. So I think he's an okay bench option, but you feel like it is performance based. Is he going to be ready? Obviously Cincotta's there waiting in the wings, and they can always use him as a sub because they got Newman back there. They got heaps of defenders. They got McGovern to come back in if they want to play him. So a bit of shuffling can be done around there. So I don't think I'll be picking Cowan, but I think he's fine, especially if you don't want to pay for McKenna. So yeah, Cincotta I'm not picking. Cowan I think is fine to pick if you want. I think Wilmot is ahead of him though in terms of a bench spot for the benefit of our teams. And Hollands, I think he'll be okay. I think he's on my AFL fantasy bench, but not for Supercoach. I think fantasy bench are in a bit of trouble in that format with no Oscar Baker and whatnot. So before we get into the Crows and the Crows tagging discussion, I want to touch on Connor McKenna, who I see a lot of people dropping. And I think it's understandable because having that going, 50k extra on top of Lockie Cowan, people need that 50k for, especially if you're running a 12 primo setup or whatever reason. Maybe you're running the extra mid price, so you got like a Setterfield over Warple or whatever you got there. Maybe you want Crozier down back, whatever. For me, I like McKenna because my read on McKenna is I think they're going to back him in. He's been in the ones for quite a few training sessions that I've seen, or match, at least 2 or 3 match sims, and in both practice games. His time on ground was very high in the second one. It was 87%, which is pretty good. He only scored like a 50 odd or something. So I think he's one where I want to keep him on the bench. I guess he could be a sub risk. He did look very, very rusty, but he's mature age. I think they're going to back him in, and it might take him a bit of time to work into it. I guess the question is, Can he get back to his best? I'm not too sure. It didn't look anywhere near it, and because he's missed a lot of footy, I'm not sure he'll actually get there this year. But this is the sort of player I think Brisbane will persist with because they need a player like him. They need speed off halfback. So for me, I'm happy with him on the bench, and I think if he starts to come good and you don't have him, I think you're going to miss out on a lot of cash generation. But if you don't think he'll come good, then I guess don't pick him. But I've got a bit of faith in him. I think he's still in a professional system. So in Ireland, but yeah, it does look quite rusty, and I'm hoping that he will be a bit of a slow burn, but eventually he'll kickstart. And he had a 35 disposal game, would have been 2 or 3 years ago now, but if he's got that in him, if he can even get like a few 25 touch games here and there, that would be great. But yeah, obviously missed a lot of footy, so I'm not quite sure if he's there yet, but 87% time on ground is a good sign. So he's one I'm not really willing to drop, and I'll keep on the bench, even over Cowan, just because I think he can make a lot more money. And if we're in trouble with Constable, I'd probably rather field McKenna than Cowan or Wilmot, but we'll find out how that shapes up. So that's my take on McKenna. I would recommend starting him, but yeah, obviously if you need the money, you could go down to Cowan. Same with Radicallia. I've added Radicallia in. I didn't have him in my team reveal. I think it's a little bit of cope starting Sean Darcy without Radicallia. I don't really want to run that gauntlet. Even when Gawn gets DPP, I'm not sure he'll be the first player we want to get in, because I think a lot of our forward lines, unless you've got maybe like a McLean, I think people are running fairly deep forward lines. Maybe they're running a Sheasel or something, so maybe that could be the first upgrade, Max Gawn there. But I think the priority is going to be, do you have Laird or Oliver? You need to get them in. If you don't, you need to get them in ASAP, I think. Like, what if Constable's dropped? Like this, Jones, you probably don't want on the field for too long. So I think people want to, grab these expensive defenders and mids before they get to the forwards, unless something really good pops up. But just because most people are going at least 4 premiums in the forward line, people want to strengthen up other lines. So for that reason, if you're not going Radicallia, I guess 1, you're hoping Samson Ryan debuts and holds his spot, or 2, you want to get Gawn in early, or 3, you want to go a fair while without ruck cover. And we can, Marshall's durability it's not that bad, but it's he's had mostly the foot issue, I think, over the past few years. So hopefully he's all good. But yeah, just ruckman. I think there was only 2 or 3 ruckmen that played every game last year. I think it was Witts, Draper, and somebody else. So in a volatile line, I think Radicallia, we might need to call upon his help once or twice. So for that reason, I just feel a little bit more at ease having Radicallia. But if you don't want to pick him, again, that's another 50k sitting on my bench, and another 50 with McLean. That's 150k sitting on my bench every week that's not on my field, but I genuinely don't know what to do with it. Like, how could I improve? I guess you could get like a kill 2 plays and get Finn Callahan or something like that, but otherwise I genuinely don't know what to do with it. So, and I might be fielding McLean, so that's that. So yeah, I do recommend Radicallia if you're running a Darcy combo. And I've also got the loophole, I think, just for I do probably prefer having a bit more money, just in case the cash gen's not as good as we think it'll be. But we need to score points. That's what the game is about, and Madden will help us score points and loophole, and maybe even we can maybe loop Radicallia. When does Hawks play? Okay, so I can't really loop Green. Yeah, we could only really loop Radicallia and Green onto the field, and maybe throw Flanders in the midfield to cover McLean and Phillips or something like that. So maybe if Radicallia goes really well, we can just field him. But yeah, get a little bit of loophole action. But I've seen a few people want to run the defender mid loop, say where Davey is, so that way they can loop their McLean and Will Phillips, which I think would be kind of nice because, again, we're trying to get points on the field here, and when you get it wrong, sometimes it can be a lot of points down the drain, 30, 40, sometimes 50, or if you didn't field Jack Hayes or Martin 70, 80 points last year, it stings really badly. And yeah, I think next topic we'll get to, last one I think, is Laird and Dawson, or probably the last one will be why I dropped Josh Kelly. So Laird and Dawson, I guess the panic truly set in. I think it might have been JD who said it, but yeah, something like, George has gone into meltdown off one tweet from GWS, but one article on the AFL website where they wrote about tagging Laird. Because look, I'm a Crow supporter, and I see, if you're playing against the Crows, you look at their midfield it's Laird. You got Berry, number one pressure player in the comp, and then what? You got a whole bunch of kids rotating basically. So why wouldn't you take Laird? He's so far and away the best mid at the club, and I guess Dawson as well. He's like probably along with Fogarty, clear top three. Probably Laird 1, Dawson 2, Fogarty 3. I would say in best players at the club, but Laird is so far and away better than every other midfielder we have. Even though I like Sam Berry and I think he'll have a good year, but Laird is just a gun. So why wouldn't you take Laird? Now, what does it mean for Laird? Do you drop him to McRae? Do you drop him to Oliver? For me, I'm going to stick fat with him just because of there's no guarantee they actually tag him, but they might put a little bit of work into him at stoppage. But I don't know, just watching Laird, he's a machine. He doesn't stop. He's switched on. I think that's what, when Berry did an interview talking about how Laird mentored him, I think he would say that, the mindset of Laird is that he never switches off during games. He's always switched on, and you can see just how consistent he is. He barely ever has a quiet quarter, and he's been this consistent for almost a decade now. So there's no reason why that won't continue. So for me, I still think he's the main captain option. I won't be captaining him this week or in round 1 just because of the minor threat of this attention stuff, but when he's been tagged in the past, he's still turned up. We saw him score a 130 on Willem Drew, who tagged him, and he'll tackle, he'll work so hard, and he said he's put on a bit of weight this preseason, so he gets pushed around less. So for me, I still really like him. I want him in the team, and I think as hard as it will be watching other people getting him a little bit cheaper, he'll always be pretty difficult still to trade in. And I think in the first few rounds, when we need upgrades, I think Zach Merritt's going to cop 2 tags in the first month. Maybe Took's a little bit underdone. He comes down a little bit. Wait for him to start coming good. You can grab a Took Miller, although that hamstring recurrence does always scare me a little bit. And even defense, we know like Sinclair, Sicily, they're not going to sit at 620 forever. So I think the focus will be on getting these guys, and you just kind of hope that Laird and Oliver, if you don't have them, are a cheaper price. So for me, the tag on Laird, I'm not too worried about. If I got to take a low ton in round 1, so be it. Whatever. He's going to be my, his fixture after this. I don't see many tags, if any, in the next 5 or 6 weeks. He'll be in my team. I do like Oliver, though. But then there's, Dawson. They might put a bit of attention into Dawson. I mean, I don't know. What are they going to do? Throw Daniels on him or something? I got no idea what they could do. I can't remember if they've even done forward tags before. We know they got Perryman and Ash. We know they've settled him at half-back. Perryman's one of the main 4 in the mid-rotation. So I don't know what they do with Dawson, if they hard tag him or whatnot. But we know even when Dawson gets tagged, he tackles really hard. He doesn't... Laird and Dawson, they're not bitch players. They dig in all the time, every week. So even when they get tagged, they'll fight really hard. So it'll happen sometimes. It won't happen most of the time. So I'll stick with those 2. Although I'm very annoyed about Finn McGuinness tagging round 6 for Dawson. But I think the way we're structuring up, it's just, can you go on McKenna on the field? Do you get him up to like a Crozier or whoever you like? I've opted no. So I don't have Crozier anymore, but it's just to split the money out. I think I split him into Radicalia and something else. I can't remember. I got money in the bank and got Jelly up to Dawson. And I think the last thing I'll speak about is no Josh Kelly. I think it's more structure that's forced me into no Josh Kelly. I'm not quite sure. I'm a little bit nervous if Constable gets dropped. All of a sudden, the bench is under a lot of pressure. Yo's got durability issues. I think I probably want Jones off the field pretty early as well. And I just think McKenna hasn't really proven that he's fieldable yet, but I think in time he might be able to prove that. So, a bit like Toby McLean, I don't feel comfortable fielding him round 1, but I think he's one where he can click into gear at some point and start making some money and improve his role and get some confidence. So, less to do with what Josh Kelly has done to previous owners in the past and more to do with structure. So, unfortunately, I think most people have Greens. I don't really want to antipod that. Bont hasn't left the team for months. And Laird's been in my preseason team for, 80%, and I've pretty much committed now. So, Kelly was the one to go out. But very much committed to the rest of the team. Very much committed to this forward line. It's just, I don't want to I put Bruin in halfway through the second game, did a bit more research, and I think he'll get some decent mid rotations. And then Flanders has been outstanding this preseason, only 250k. I think he can outscore Sheasel and make more money than him. And hopefully play that half forward rolling up and give us like an 85 or something, a bit like a Dylan Moore or even Nick Martin. I think was going 80 at one point. Maybe if Martin can do that sort of stuff, then I think Flanders can too. So that's where we're at the moment. I guess the only thing I could do to change is, you got Wilmot. If I want to get Jared Witts over Darcy, it's either Laird down to Oliver or Wilmot down to Cowan. I think that's what I've decided. So I don't love making sacrifices, and then you can throw Witts in there. I'll probably end up going with Darcy, just save a bit of money, and I think Darcy's upside and how he's looked has looked pretty good. Who do we have here? Wilmot. I guess the other one is last topic, very much a random video. Jack Bytel is an interesting one, 2% owned. I think the problem is he probably has the most upside of all these rookies. He'll probably outscore all of them if he plays and they give him a bit of mid-time like they did in the preseason game. But again, like Ross is due back early, Winhager's a test for round 1. What does that mean for Bytel? They got, they got Steele, they got Crouch. I think Hunter Clark, they'll give some minutes to. There's just too many names there for him to get ample mid-time or to avoid the substitute, which is a little bit difficult. And I didn't see a whole lot of outside game from him. It did seem like he's like a one-dimensional inside mid, but I probably haven't seen enough of him to make that definitive call. So yeah, just a random video checking in and whatnot, and hope we all relaxed about the team and ready to go into round 1. Hopefully enjoy a bit of footy, not stress over the team so much, but yeah, see how we go. Let me know what you're thinking, anything on your mind. I can answer any questions if you want. Haven't been able to answer a few questions lately, just been busy and that, but maybe lazy as well. But I feel like I've been giving more time to the Discord rather than YouTube, but during the season, I'll definitely give more time to the comment section. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.